attended Harvard University, majoring in engineering, right?
Neurobiology.
So, but you were initially, you started it to major in engineering. So then, where did that flip? Why did it flip?
Yeah, so I think I was probably a year and a half into my college education, and I started off on an engineering route because I thought I wanted to be an engineer on a race team. And as I started taking all of those classes, they overlapped with a lot of my friends who were taking pre-med classes. And so I remember thinking to myself, like, wow, I could take these same skills in science and things like that I'm learning and use it to help people medically, cure them of disease and make them healthier and everything like that. So I was kind of just captured that idea and kind of jumped ship, moved over to medicine. So I ended up majoring in neurobiology as my undergrad, and then went on to medical school after that.
So you graduated in 2012. Then in 2013, you were in that peak stock car dream challenge, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So how did you get into that?
Yeah, so you graduated, college in 2012. So I was a year into medical school in 2013, and I was home working on the late model because I was still racing super late models at the time. And I saw the commercial on TV. It was like Michael Waltrip, Danica Patrick, and they're like, "Do you have what it takes to be the next, stock car dream champion?" And it was, basically American Idol for race car drivers. So I saw the commercial. I was sitting there. I think it was my mom. I looked at her. I was like, "I'm going to make a video and enter this deal." I mean, you never know what could happen. The goal was always to make it in racing, and it's so difficult without the right connections, funding, things like that. And that contest basically gave me an opportunity to show what I could do and get my foot in the door. And I was fortunate enough to win it.
So did you watch the Ram Challenge? Because I
watched the Ram Challenge. Yeah.
I was thinking about interviewing you. I'm thinking the Ram thing was this replica of what you did. So.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and then before that, I mean, they did the Gong Show way back when. So there's been a couple, I think, cool contests like that where it gives grassroots racers a chance to show what they can do. Because there's so many talented race car drivers out there that just never get that opportunity, and it's cool to see that they're still doing it.
So Chase Briscoe was in that competition with you. So I just thought that was an interesting side note that I saw that he was actually in it.
Yeah, it's when I first met Chase. Yeah, very talented guy. Obviously, he's going on to do very well for himself, and it was cool to be in that contest with him.
All right, so you mentioned it. You won a race in the ARCA West Series that first year. So when you are thinking the medical route, you're still doing the side stuff with the racing, and then you win the challenge, and then you win a race. Mm-hmm. Do you suddenly feel like maybe I should kind of switch directions and focus on the racing part?
Yeah, it's definitely a tug of war between my two passions, and always trying to find ways to combine them where it worked. Now that year was difficult. I ended up taking a year off from medical school to pursue the racing. At the same time, I was doing research, which kind of helped me further on in my medical career. But that year I took off. I moved to North Carolina. I worked at Michael Waltrip Racing as a marketing intern. Ran those races for Bill McAnally and got the win in the ARCA West race. So. The goal was if everything kept falling into place and that worked out to be a full-time opportunity, then that's what I would have done. Circumstances kind of made it take a little bit of a detour. Unfortunately, I was able to go back and complete my medical education and move forward from there.
So you had that initial success in 2014. You have a 10-year gap. You're focused on the medicine side.
Yep.
So what is the biggest difference between Patrick, the development driver, a decade ago, and Dr. Staropoli, the full-time pro today?
I think just like you said, time and experience. I've continued to race even in these past 10 years where I haven't been in a national series. I'm still racing late models and modifieds, anything I can get my hands on with four wheels and a steering wheel. So I think that just having the extra experience, getting a little bit older, seeing how races play out, knowing what's important when you get to a racetrack as far as tuning the car, the balance, and being patient in a race. I think I'm a little bit more of a seasoned driver now than I was back then, and I kind of let things play out and take advantage of the opportunities when they present themselves. So a little bit of different approach to how I race, but still just as passionate about it.
So you've mentioned that both surgery and racing require 100% focus. Mm-hmm. When you're mid-surgery on a delicate retina versus mid-pack at Daytona, which do you feel more pressure in what environment?
It's a great question. More pressure, I still would lean towards surgery. That is very, like you said, delicate task. It's something special between you and the patient. It's usually always is a very emotionally charged situation. When people have retinal tears and detachments, it threatens their vision for the rest of their life. And every move you make when you're operating on someone has, permanent, lasting implications for how they experience the world for the rest of the time that they're alive. So that's a pressure cooker right there. Racing is intense. It's competitive. There's an audience watching. I think that's the biggest difference. When you're operating, it's you, the patient, and your staff. When we do things out here, it's on national TV. But it's a different kind of pressure. It's fun. Racing's something I've always loved. So when I'm 3 wide in the pack at Daytona, I don't feel the pressure. I'm just enjoying every moment of it.
Love it. So eye surgery carries an enormous responsibility, as you just described. Racing carries the physical danger. So how do you explain to patients or family why you do both?
Yeah, I've never really had to explain myself, I think, to family. They know how much I love doing this. My dad and my grandfather raced when I was a kid growing up, so it's always just been part of what the Staropolis do. So kind of growing up around it. Now, that doesn't make it any easier for my mom. She's always very tense when we're at the racetrack. She's gotten better here the last couple years, the more that she comes. But there is an element to it. I think that racing in general has gotten so much safer over the last 20-25 years now. The way they construct these cars, I think the safest vehicle you can compete in across motorsports. So I never have that thought in my head. I think that any race car driver that has that at the forefront or is worried about it, you're not going to go as fast.
So at Harvard, you said you studied neurobiology and how the brain processes visual pathways.
Yep.
So how does your scientific understanding of spatial awareness change how you actually see the track compared to drivers who are doing it purely on instinct?
Yeah, there's a lot that goes into it. So that's why neurobiology was so interesting, and I think that's why I ended up becoming a retina surgeon, because I learned so much about how your eye processes that visual information, how it shoots it back to your brain, and then in real time how you process that data. So that's like tracking objects and anticipation and perception, and so many of those skills directly translate to what you need to do as a race car driver. Not just your feel in the seat and how you're trying to balance the car, whether it's loose or tight, and drive your most competitive lap, but also when you're in traffic, like when you're sucking up to somebody in the draft, or if you're trying to get on their right rear and pack air on them. You need to understand, I guess, the physics of it, but then your eyes and your mind have to understand in real time what's happening. Now, I'm not out there doing calculations or anything like that, but I think just having that general knowledge of what I'm able to perceive and how quickly I can perceive it, it helps me stay out of putting myself in bad positions or bad spots on the racetrack where you can get in over your head.
Okay, how do you pronounce the sponsor's name?
Syfovre.
Syfovre. Okay, so you're in a unique position, sponsored by Syfovre, a treatment for eye disease. And as an actual eye surgeon, how does it feel to be the only driver in the garage who can explain exactly how your sponsor's medicine works to a patient?
Yeah, it's like you said, it's a unique position. Usually, it's just going around telling people how to pronounce the medication. But you nailed it. Syfovre is how it's pronounced, and it's, like you said, a prescription eye injections for the treatment of geographic atrophy, which is due to age-related macular degeneration. It's something that can affect people as they get older, and we're happy to have the Syfovre Chevrolet on track this year.
So, do you feel like your Ivy League background creates any barriers in the NASCAR world? Or do you feel like you've gotten like side eye maybe in the Harvard crowd saying you're NASCAR? I mean, is there any conflict between the two audiences?
Fortunately, no conflict. A lot of interest. Like you said, it's unique, like in each area. When I'm in clinic, like it's cool to talk to my staff and patients about how the race went this past weekend. And people are, even if they're just casual motorsports fans, it's something different to talk about when you go see your doctor, obviously. And then on the flip side, when I'm at the racetrack here, I got occasionally people coming up to me all the time and like, hey, I got this thing going on with my eye, can you take a look at it? So you're just doing curbside consults in the garage area. So I fortunately, haven't really ever had any, like you said, side eye or animosity or anything like that. It's just a lot of genuine, I think, interest, and it's cool to be able to hop back and forth between those two worlds.
When you walk into a ring, do you introduce yourself as a doctor who races or a racer who happens to be not?
Depends what room I'm walking into, I guess. I usually just introduce myself as Patrick and let the rest of the conversation go from there. But when I'm at the racetrack, I got my racer's cap on, and that's what I'm here to do.
So, what's the one thing? This is my last question about your journey that you've never been asked in an interview that you think people would actually find fascinating or interesting?
That's a good question. It's a question about a question. I think something that maybe has come up in different variations is just, my journey's been very undulating and whining and how I got to this point, and at what point would a normal person or would someone have given up on their dream. And I think that the thing I try to reinforce to people is if you're passionate about something in life, if you wake up in the morning, it's the first thing you think about, and it's the last thing you think about before you go to sleep at night. You'll find that motivation to dig deeper. And if you get 10,000 people that tell you no, you just hope for that one yes. And I'm really thankful to Scott Borchetta, Patrick Donahue, Chevrolet, everybody at Big Machine Racing has given me the chance to live my dream this year. And I know I have an uphill battle competing in the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series. A lot of great people out here, but we're going to put the Syfovre Chevrolet up front.
Well, last question is, you've had two pretty solid runs in the first two races of the season, top 20. So, I mean,
Yep.
Where's your confidence level coming into a track like Coda?
Confidence level's good. Starting the year with 2 restrictor plate races. Obviously, with these cars, I'm still kind of learning how all that works. I'm happy that we made it through the first 2 races. Minimal mistakes, car rolling on 4 tires at the end. I mean, usually, like you saw, there's a lot of mayhem in these 2 races. And then we come to Coda, which is going to be my first road race ever. Fun fact, left and right turns for the first time this weekend. So I'm looking forward to it. Every week's a new challenge. These guys have done a ton to get me as prepared as possible before actually getting on the track. So I'm just going to go out and execute, minimize mistakes, and see where we end up.
Very good. Thank you, Patrick.
Yeah,
I
thank you.
appreciate your time.
Appreciate it.